Hello, fifth graders, and welcome to your math lesson for today. For today, you will need your math resource finder, your 5A textbook, your 5A workbook, and then paper or pencil. If you need to go get those things, pause and then come on back. As I mentioned in our last lesson, fifth graders, our warm-up exercises are going to begin becoming much like problems that you'll see on your future DDI, which again, it's not till January, but good practice between now and then to really keep working on these skills. So number one asks you to find the product of 5,321 and 72. This is your friendly reminder right now that product is multiplication. That's not something that I would tell you on the test, but you should remember that now. Okay, and then find the value, it says, and express in simplest form. So this is your cue here, express in simplest form. That means that you should be expressing this answer as a fraction. So we want to express the remainder as a fraction over the divisor. So go ahead and pause and work on these both, and then come on back and see how you did. So as I mentioned, fifth graders, product is multiplication. So we want to be multiplying these two together, okay? So your first row should look like this. Then you add a 0 for your second row. Which should look like this. And then we add. And our answer should be 383,112. And yes, we add that comma, okay? For division, I didn't give myself a lot of space, but 6 goes into 8 once. Goes into 23 3 times with a remainder of 5. So we express our answer as 13 and 5/6, right? The simplest form is our clue that we should have our remainder as a fraction. So the remainder, which I had to write over on the side here, is our numerator, and the divisor is our denominator. And it is simplified, so we don't need to simplify any further, okay? So as you're working on these warm-up problems, if you're feeling like, I'm kind of confused, that's a great thing to say. I'm going to go see Miss Burry or Mr. Tonhape or Mr. Reynolds during office hours and talk through some of these warm-up problems, okay? So for today, fifth graders, we're going to be continuing on with our fraction work. Specifically, we're going to be working on converting a fraction of a quantity. So when we're talking about converting, this is usually going to be like with units, quantities. So things like kilograms and pounds and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, okay? So first thing I want to remind you of is this thing we talked about, this word of. Remember, when we're talking about math, of is the same as what? That's right, multiplication. So when we talk about of, we are multiplying. So the math of this is going to be kind of similar to what we've been working on the last couple of days, but there is going to be a new layer to it, okay? So for today, we are going to be converting from the larger unit to the smaller unit. And in order to do that, we're going to multiply by the conversion factor. Okay, so some of this you might be like, what does that mean? I'm going to show you. But anytime we go from the larger unit to the smaller unit, we're going to use multiplication. Okay, and the reason for that, because you might think, well, doesn't multiplication get bigger? But think about a ruler, right? We have a foot and then 12 inches, right? So the foot is the larger unit, so it takes up more space, right? And so then so we multiply because 12 inches is equal to 1 foot. So when we go from larger to smaller, that's why we multiply, because we're going from the bigger and we're kind of breaking it into smaller chunks. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is open up in our textbooks to page 71. Okay? That's what we're going to be working through today. So I'm going to flip you around, and then we're going to take a look at some of 71 together. Okay, so I have my empty dry erase pocket here. So I told you that for today we're always going from the larger to the smaller unit. So that means we're going to multiply by our conversion factor. And so the question is kind of like, what is a conversion factor? Okay, the conversion factor is going to be each of these, okay? It's going to be the bigger one. So you don't want to think about the one that says 1. You want to think about the one that has a digit there. So that's, I've underlined here on this dry erase packet so you can see all of these are the conversion factor. So as we're looking at today's problems, we want to be considering what are the units that we're going between, okay? And so then what conversion factor should we be multiplying by? But remember, it's going to be multiplication for every one of these ones today. There will be future lessons where that's not true, where we're going to have to really consider, are we going larger to smaller or smaller to larger? But for today, this is what we're going to consider. Okay, so I'm going to move this aside. And we're going to just get in and do some practice problems here. So the same rule really is going to keep applying throughout. We're going from larger to smaller, so we're going to multiply by the conversion factor. And this will relate to our fraction work. Specifically, let's just look at, scooting this around a little bit, 10a. We're being asked to find what 1/2 of a minute is in seconds. Okay, so we want to look. Find our minutes and seconds. This is in our time area. 1 minute is 60 seconds. So we're going to multiply 1/2 by our conversion factor. Looking here, what is our conversion factor? 60. So we multiply 1/2 by 60, which when we multiply across is 60 over 2, which we then have to simplify and get 30 seconds. Now, 5th graders, you probably already know like 1/2 a minute is 30 seconds. I didn't have to do the math. That's probably true. Okay, but that's not going to be true for every one of these. So we really just want to keep going through the process. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to do B, which is asking us to find 7/10 of a kilogram, converting it into grams. So we're going to multiply 7/10 by the conversion factor. Ideally, you'll start to remember these, especially because I know your math work has, or not math, science work has dealt with this. But even so, we should be able to look. What is the conversion factor here? 1 kilogram equals 1,000 grams, so we're multiplying by 1,000. Okay? So now we check. Actually, in this case, we can simplify in advance. These are both divisible by 10. So 10 divided by 10 is 1. 1,000 divided by 10 is 100. Now we multiply across. Numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator, we get 700. 700 what? 700 grams. And it's worth noting actually that all of these problems for today really are going to be with units. Okay, so make sure that you're including units in your answers. Okay, I'm gonna go over and keep going. So 10C now. 2/5 of a kilometer equals how many meters? So we're going to multiply by our conversion factor. Kilo, we should remember that that kilo means 1,000, okay? So we're going to multiply by 1,000. Of course, when we multiply by a whole number, it's 1,000 over 1. And again, we can simplify in advance. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 1,000 divided by 5 is 200. So now we multiply across. 2 times 200, we could think 2 times 2 is 4, so 2 times 200 is 400. 400 what? Meters. Okay? Hopefully you can see the pattern emerging. This is what we're going to do for each of these. Even when the conversion factors get a little bit trickier, it should still work. So D, 3/10 of a liter equals how many milliliters? So we multiply 3/10 times 1 liter equals 1,000 milliliters. So times 1,000. Again, we can simplify in advance. And now we do our multiplication. And we get 300. 300 what? 300 milliliters. Great. Let's keep going. All right, E. 3/4 of a year equals how many months? Okay, so again, we multiply 3/4 by our conversion factor. How many months in a year? 12. So we're going to multiply by 12, but remember, it's 12 over 1. Okay. Again, we can simplify in advance. This diagonal pair shares a common factor. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. 12 divided by 4 is 3. Now we multiply across. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 what? 9 months. Let's take a look at F. 1/6 of an hour equals how many minutes? So we're going to multiply 1/6 by what is our conversion factor? 1 hour is 60 minutes. So we multiply by 60. We can simplify in advance. These are both divisible by 6. Now we multiply across. 1 times 10 is 10. 10 what? 10 minutes. All right, 5th graders, it is your turn to try on your own. I would like you to work on G, H, and F. So pause, work on all 3, and then come on back and see how you did. All right, G. 2/3 of a yard equals how many feet? So we multiply by what? What is our conversion factor? 1 yard equals 3 feet. So we multiply by 3 over 1. We can simplify in advance. Now we multiply. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 what? 2 feet. If you did not have feet, make sure you add that. You want to do that on your homework as well. H says 1/4 of a pound equals how many ounces? So we multiply 1/4 by, there it is, 1 pound is 16 ounces. So we multiply by 16. Again, we can simplify in advance, dividing both of these by 4. We multiply across and get 4 ounces. Again, if you did not write ounces, please add that. Finally, I, 3/4 of a gallon equals how many quarts? So we multiply 3/4 times 1 gallon is 4 quarts. So we multiply by 4. We can simplify in advance. These are both divisible by 4. So our answer is 3 quarts. So 5th graders, this is the process that you're going to follow in your practice and your homework. We're not quite done. We're going to keep working. There's a little bit of a different type of problem, but this is what you're going to be working on as you're working through your practice and your homework. Remember, this is kind of like checkpoint 1. How did this go? Did this go well? You just did 3, or you should have just done 3 problems on your own. So the question is, how did it go? Did it go well? And if not, you should be seeking out help. Okay, there's lots of people who are willing and able to help you, but you have to reach out and take advantage of that. Okay, so if you need that help, you should reach out and get it. Okay, so as we look at number 11, we're going to slightly change. Okay, we're looking at a mixed number here. Okay, so we have 2 3/4 of an hour equals how many hours? How many minutes? Okay, so don't be confused. What we're shooting for in the end is to have a whole number here and a whole number here. So currently we have this whole number. So that's going to go right in here, okay? 2 hours. We don't need to change that whole number because it already is a whole number. This part is the part that we want to now convert into minutes so that we no longer have a fraction here. So what does that mean? The same process at this point. 3/4 of an hour equals how many minutes? So we're going to multiply by our conversion factor, which is 60. Multiply by 60 over 1, okay? This can be simplified in advance, so I'm just going to demonstrate this. They actually share a factor of 4, but let's say you didn't know that, okay? You divide them both by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 60 divided by 2 is 30. So now you should say, oh, those are still even. I can go further. So just do it again, okay? If you weren't sure that they shared a factor of 4, it's okay to take multiple steps, okay? So now we multiply 3 times 15, which is 45. Okay, so we end up with 2 hours, 45 minutes. Okay? So let's do a couple more of these together. We're looking at, I'm going to move this aside again to just have room. 12a is 2 1/3 hours equals how many hours, how many minutes? So remember, the goal is to have a whole number in each place. So 2 hours, we can move right on over to 2 hours. That's not going to change. This is now what we focus on. 1/3 of an hour equals how many minutes? So remember, we multiply by our conversion factor, which is 60. These can both be divided by 3. Okay. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 60 divided by 3 is 20. When we multiply across, we get 20 minutes. So the answer is 2 hours, 20 minutes. Okay. Let's try another. 12b. 4 2/3 yards equals how many yards, how many minutes? Remember, our whole number just moves right on over. Okay, we don't have to do anything with that. So now we say 2/3 of a yard, oops, I said minutes, that's pretty silly, feet equals how many feet? So we're going to multiply by our conversion factor, which remember, our conversion factor with yards to feet is 3. We simplify in advance and get 2. So our correct answer is 4 yards, 2 feet. Okay, so let's try C. 5 1/4 gallons equals how many gallons, how many quarts? Remember, 5 just moves right on over. So now we multiply 1/4 by our conversion factor, which is 4. This is just getting in the way. So when we simplify in advance, we actually are going to multiply across and get 1. 5 gallons, 1 quart. So 5th graders, I would like you to pause. There are 3 more problems I would like you to work on. D, E, and F. Okay? Once you are done working on D, E, and F, come on back and see how you did. So remember, 3.5 kilometers equals how many kilometers, how many meters? Our whole number moves right on over. Okay, I keep putting in the unit. I don't want to do that. 1/2, we're going kilometers to meters, so we're going to multiply by 1,000. When you simplify in advance, you should get 500. So 500 meters. 3 kilometers, 500 meters. 14 9/10 of a liter equals how many liters, how many milliliters? So again, our whole number just goes right over here. Now we multiply by our conversion factor. These can both be divided by 10. And we end up with 900 milliliters. And one more. 6 1/4 years equals how many years, how many months? Remember, our years just goes right on over. So we multiply 1/4 by our conversion factor. What is our conversion factor? 12, because there are 12 months in a year, okay? We simplify in advance, and we end up with 3. So our answer is 6 years, 3 months. So 5th graders, again, this is kind of your next checkpoint. How did those go? You have now taken, you should have done for sure at least 6 problems today on your own, and then seeing the answers worked out for you. So again, if it went great, then that means you're definitely ready to go on to the practice work. If it did not go well, that means that you should be saying to a teacher, to me, Mr. Tive, even Mr. Reynolds is available, and say, hey, I need help, okay? We can talk through some of these problems. We're going to go ahead and, if you're ready to move on to the practice, that comes next. Again, work on the practice problems. Check it against the key. That's your next checkpoint. How did that go? Working independently. Okay or not so much? Okay? After that, then it's time to move on to your homework, which is going to be pages 66 and 67 in your workbook. Okay? You should be uploading pictures of that work for us to look at and then submitting that picture. Okay? So good luck, 5th graders. Let me know if you have any questions.